Spoiler Sleepover is sponsored by Gore Clown Shop.
Do you love all things horror? Books? Movies? Podcasts? Of course you do. Well, come on down to goreclown.com.
Original artwork by an indie horror fan for indie horror fans.
Use code SLEEPOVER at checkout to save 15% on your whole purchase.
Oh, and did we mention? Gore Clown is the only place to get official Spoiler Sleepover merch.
So don't forget to use Sleepover to save 15%.
Stay indie, suckers!
I wish to create a perfect human being, selecting the best organs from different sources.
We're back in our second week of Spooky Month, ready to talk about a classic movie in the Universal style. This definitely being a more iconic monster, and we are very excited to talk about it and just kind of see how each other feels about it.
Yeah, we already know how we feel about it, and I feel like anybody who actually knows us knows how we feel about it. But it's still fucking October, dude. Yeah, buddy.
Ooh.
So let's rock and roll with the undead.
Welcome back to October. Second week of October, we are talking about The Mummy from 1932. Rob?
Are you my mummy?
No. No, I'm not.
Doctor Who reference for everybody? I'm not sorry.
You did it again, this bastard.
I had to bring something good into this fucking episode.
Jesus. But yes, of course, welcome back, everybody, ladies, gents, and our non-binary friends to Spoiler Sleepover. I'm Jason Michael.
I'm Rob.
We are, as I said, talking about 1932's The Mummy.
Yep.
We've kind of been hinting at it. I've been highly alluding to it, but like I don't want to talk about anything until this episode. And now that we're finally here, yeah. But before we get into this, I don't even want to say anything more about it. Rob,
yeah,
tell me what's been keeping you up at night.
Oh. What's been keeping me up at night? Well, I have been watching the new FX show by Ryan Murphy. If you don't know who he is, you're living under a rock. This is he created American Horror Story, which had a handful of decent, like good seasons, and then the slow decline of what the show has become. But his new show, holy fuck, it's called Grotesquerie. And it is insane.
What a name.
It's an intense name. I don't want to give it away. Never mind. Just watch the show. It's really good. But if you watched and were a fan of the Hannibal TV show and the brutality and like intense shit that they show on that show, this is that. Like the murders that they show after, like they don't show the murders, they show the aftermath like they did in Hannibal. It's fucking brutal. It's intense. I sat down to watch it with my fiance, and we were sitting there, and they showed the first thing. Both of our eyes just got real wide. We were like, "Holy fuck! They're showing this. This is awesome." So yeah, check out Grotesquerie. It's streaming on Hulu, and I believe the first the first 6 episodes are out. So they dropped the first 4 episodes week after week, and I guess running till the end of October, they're dropping 2 episodes a week. So there are 6 currently out. There'll be 10 episodes total. And I believe that that's going to be the end. I can't foresee them even running this for 2 seasons. It doesn't really, the characters don't bode well for a second season. I'll just put it that way. So, but it's really good, very well written, very well acted, very fucking weird. Hard to like pin down specific things. You're like, is this reality? Is this a dream? You don't really know, but it's good. Check out Grotesquerie. Jason Michael, what's been keeping you up at night?
Well, I've got 2 things. I've, of course, been continuing on my binge through or re-binge through of Psych. And there's a lot of like shit that I'm not remembering now. So we're getting into the later seasons. I'm now on season 6.
Oh, damn.
And there's like 16 episodes a season, all about 45 minutes. And it's starting to get to things that I don't remember. So it's starting to definitely be like, did I watch these episodes? Did it get to the point where all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I passed on the show now. I honestly don't remember if I watched it all the way through or if I gave up at some point. I think I watched it all the way through, but we're going to find out very soon.
Yeah.
Before we started recording, I was actually watching one where there's a superhero now, or a vigilante, if you will, a street crime fighting vigilante.
It's like they brought superpowers into the show. Jesus Christ.
I mean, they've done a lot more, like weirder things. There's been a mummy, there's been a werewolf, there's been vampires, all proven, obviously not to be the actual things.
Oh, okay.
But they've dabbled in a bit of obscure before. There's been aliens. Aliens.
Right. Like X-Files. You're like, is any of this actually real? And then X-Files was like, guess what? Aliens are real. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
We've done this many seasons, and all of a sudden you're just like, here's aliens, bitch. And you're like, oh my God.
That theme song still gives me shivers. Like, I will go on record saying the X-Files theme song terrified me as a kid and still kind of lingers in my adult brain and just goes, ooh, creepy.
Have you ever listened to the entire song? You know it's an entire song. It's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel like we've also talked about that before.
Oh,
Either
probably.
way. And the other thing on my What's Been Keeping Us Up at Night, as you are listening to this on Sunday, October 13th, preferably, if not, Terrifier 3
Trace
just dropped.
Yes, it did.
On October 11th, 2024. The date of recording this, last night. Rob and I went to go see it. We are not going to go into full detail or anything like that or talk about it at the moment. But I don't think there's a bad Terrifier movie at all. I'm just going to say that. Will it be a bit divisive on maybe some hardcore Terrifier fans? Maybe. Because there was a point where we watched 7 or 8 people get up and walk out. Not like sick or anything, but they got out and like, cool, downtime, walk away, take a piss, come back.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad movie. Like it's a good movie. It's just different, like very different from 1 and 2. I mean, granted, 2 was very different from 1, but still carried this specific like Terrifier vibe. Where this one has kind of thrown that vibe away and has built a lore. Like we were building a lore in 2.
There's a plot.
Yeah, this one lays out everything. And that was so I got back after we watched the movie, sat down, chatted with my fiance, and I was like, I think I figured out what pissed me off about the movie and why I'm judging it so hard. Mm-hmm. And then I told her, and she was like, why the way they do that? And I'm like, I have no idea. And she's like, yeah, that would piss me off too. And I was like, fair enough. So I think no matter what, if it was on our rating scale, I'm giving it a 9, just because there was just enough of things not being what we were expecting, that I would give it a 9. Now, if you really want to know our true feelings about it, you can watch a portion of a review that we did, right after we saw the movie on our Instagram. And if you want to see the entire review, you can jump on over to our TikTok. That's right. Your social media dude over here has been working hard, and I got a TikTok up and running.
onto TikTok.
Yeah, so if you're on TikTok, go give us a follow. Currently, that's the only video that's up there. I'll be doing a lot more. It's going to be, we're going to start recording some more of our videos while we're recording episodes, so you get some visuals of us chit-chatting. I will be kind of doing some nerd collectible stuff on there as well, so you'll get to see some unboxings. I've got a few already set up that I'm ready to start doing soon. So just keep an eye on our TikTok. If you're on there, give us a follow, shout out, comment, like, share, all of that fun stuff. But yeah, if y'all haven't seen Terrifier 3 yet, I'll repeat what I said in the video so that you can hear it here if you haven't seen the video. Don't let the hype deter you. It's not bad. Like, it's
the people
lighter.
saying, I'm walking out within the first 8 minutes. It's like, yes, it was brutal, but it wasn't walkoutable.
No, and I mean, I think the brutality that may have made people walk out isn't even something you see. So it's more the idea of what's going on. But also, if you want to hear a pseudo spoiler of this, in a few weeks, Dead Body Bathtub and us will be dropping an episode each. We will be talking about Terrifier 3 together. So stay tuned for that. It will drop when the entire party over at Dead Body is free. So, and then, that'll be fun. We'll be back with those fine folks. Jason Michael.
Yes, sir.
I'm a little concerned right now.
What now?
There happens to be things not just coming out of one, but both of your ears.
God damn it.
What have you been doing?
Fumigated.
So.
I don't like things crawling out of my orifices.
Do you have a nice, delicious earworm for us this week?
It's getting worse. It's getting much worse each time.
You have to consume all audio.
Ugh.
So it makes sense.
Definitely, I've been just re-listening to, I'm keeping on the Childish Gambino train, so just my playlist from the show I saw in August. It just makes me happy because that was like such a party, and it's not the normal kind of concert that I would go to. Mm-hmm. And I went, holy shit, you know what? This isn't bad. Not saying Childish is bad in any way, shape, or form, because he's tremendous, but like going from heavy metal shows to a fucking rap like dance party, and I'm sitting there going, okay, all right, I can get with this.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'll be, I don't know if I'd be going to any other shows like that, because who knows? Maybe I'd enjoy going to see Kendrick. I don't know. But, or maybe on the second half of the Bando Stone and the New World tour when Donald Glover gets better again.
Yeah, rest up, dude. Jeez Louise. Yeah. That was a scary post to get. I was like, good gravy. I hope he's okay.
Recovering in a hospital because of something after, I believe it was his New Orleans show. And it was just something he had to get checked out, and then he had to delay, or he postponed the rest of the U.S. leg, and then about a week ago, I think, canceled the rest of the tour.
Jeez.
Because of his recovery and how long it was going to take.
That's scary. That's scary stuff, man.
Especially on your farewell tour, too.
Yeah. Good gravy.
But yeah, that is what I have been listening to. Rob, what kind of squiggly things are coming out of your holes?
Out of my holes?
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I'm have had a great week in music, honestly. Two of my all-time favorite bands have both released new albums. Drug Church just dropped Prude on last Friday, and it is very different, but still very much Drug Church. Really good. I've only given it 2 listens so far, so I haven't really been able to take in all of the lyrics quite yet to kind of figure out what the message is. The lead singer is a poet, so like
and he doesn't even know it.
Oh, he knows it. He's got poetry books. He's a legitimate poet. Yeah. So like their first 2 albums are very in your face. Hey, recovery's hard. Drug addicts who make the choice to ruin everyone's lives are pieces of shit, sort of thing like that. As they've gone on, he's written lyrics that are a little bit more not so straightforward, which I think is great. I mean, one of my favorite songs in the more recent years is called Weed Pin, and it's just about him getting an office job and how it's not easy to like conform. It's a hilarious song. So Prude is good. I've really been enjoying it. And then as of yesterday, so we're recording this the day before the episode drops. So October 11th, not only did I get to see Terrifier 3, but I got to listen to half of Touche Amore's new album called Spiral in a Straight Line. Oh my God, it's so good. It is so good. And it is, again, wildly different than any of their past albums. They're getting older. All the members are basically in their 40s at this point, and
ancient.
Yeah, it's good. Like, it's really fucking good. So yeah, go if you've never heard of Drug Church or Touche Amore. Maybe it's your cup of tea. I mean, I know it's definitely they're considered punk now. I mean, Drug Church is definitely punk, late wave punk.
That's the name for it.
Yeah. Touche is 50-50. I still consider them hardcore. I think at this point they're more into the melodic punk, if anything, if they are even in the genre of punk. And if they are, it's simply just because of Jeremy's vocals, the lead singer. But yeah, so go check those guys out. They're on everything. And Jeremy's an artist, and he also has a podcast, which is really great. It's called First Ever. He just interviews different artists, whether that's painters, musicians, authors. He interviews them and he discusses with them their firsts. Like, when was the first time you discovered you wanted to learn guitar, that sort of thing. And then they just kind of dive into the background of these people. But it's all, for the most part, household name, big name people if you're in the scene for hardcore and punk and stuff like that. So yeah, First Ever's great podcast. So, well, those are our earworms, folks. Let us know what's been crawling out of your ears or into them or in and out of them repetitively. Let us know. We want to know. All right. Well, let's jump into some Creeping It Real. It's got a bit of a weak one, but it is a little slightly interesting. A few weeks ago, Robert Englund sat down for an interview, and he was asked, what would it take to get you back into the role of being Freddy Krueger?
Oh, yeah.
And his response was disappointing at first, but the more I've had time to sit with it, I'm kind of like, I want it. Can we get that? His response was he's too old to be Freddy, like act as Freddy. But if there was an animated version or an animated movie or series or something to come out, he would reprise the voice. I mean, we've heard 1,000 times there's, actors and who play specific characters who say they'll never play the character again, but do say
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. Hugh Jackman. Mark Hamill said, I'll never play the Joker again. And then in the Flash universe, whatever they fucking call it, their Arrowverse, that's what it's called.
Yeah,
on TV.
He was the trickster.
He was the trickster back in the day. So he comes back and then he talks and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I completely forgot. That's where he got the Joker voice. Like, oh yeah,
it's less of the trickster at that point, and you just start seeing him as the Joker, and it's like, you know what?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm more now. I'm interested more now to see what we could do with an animated Nightmare on Elm Street. Like,
how animated do you think it would go? Do you think it would go the route of like brutal animation, or do you think it's going to be like the Beetlejuice cartoon?
I would hope it would be brutal.
Okay. Honestly, in this day and age, I could see it being like Beetlejuice. Just a very family friendly, cartoony Freddy.
Yeah. it wouldn't work. Plain and simple, in the sense of, I think parents would be like, oh, cool, I can at least, like horror parents would be like, oh, cool, I can watch this with my kids. But at the same time, it wouldn't feed that want for Freddy. Like, because you're not going to give us a Freddy that way. Also, we live in a very different time. I mean, like me growing up, I watched Tales from the Crypt and, Tales from the Crypt Keeper, the animated series, and Beetlejuice, the animated series, and stuff like that. All of these shows that were based off of R-rated movies or like not kid-friendly movies. We don't live in that time anymore. We've got fucking Coco Melon and goddamn fucking Bluey and fucking Blippy and shit that just is legitimately just kid friendly. There's no
and Blippy and Flippy and Crippy and Jippy and Dippy
and that stupid Ryan kid from fucking YouTube's got his own goddamn TV show. It's weird.
Oh, the like Toys by Ryan or something?
Yeah. He's got a TV show and it's him and his parents. It's fucking weird.
Oh boy.
No, if I were to like dream world scenario, if we were to get a Nightmare on Elm Street animated series, there's a few, but the one I would personally want is the animator who did Super Jail. It's the same animator who did Beavis and Butthead as well. But like that animation with Freddy and just the brutality that Super Jail puts out in like 8, 9, 10, 15-minute segments.
Yep.
Do that with Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, you don't even need a 30-minute episode. Make them minisodes. Give us a continuing story like Super Jail gave us. Just keep them short and slap that bitch up on fucking Adult Swim. People will watch. People will fucking love it. Are you kidding me? And we've got Robert Englund voicing the character. Fuck yeah, let's do it. But yeah, I mean, it's to be expected. I mean, the only other thing was there was a rejected script at one point for a Nightmare on Elm Street movie where they managed to kill Freddy, but Freddy's spirit, basically two, but it passes on to a new person, a new killer, and that killer who's just been executed comes back to life and blah, 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 blah. It just becomes Freddy 2.0.
It sounds like a story that's been done before.
Yeah, and it's
many a times.
Stupid. But yeah, so that's our creeping it real. That's it. Well, let's jump into the episode.
Before we even begin, all right, the Mummy is my least favorite of the big 8.
Samesies.
I don't entirely know why. I think I have a little bit of a reason why. It's Egyptian Dracula. It's 1 year later. It's damn near identical to what Todd Browning's Dracula was.
Yeah.
And I already know your feelings on that one. You did not like Dracula. But it's like, I don't know. For some reason, the Egyptian Dracula just doesn't work for me. Boris Karloff is my favorite part about this movie, as it should be anybody's, but it's Boris Karloff and Edward Van Sloan.
Yeah.
And David Manners is back, as he was in Dracula, being the same stupid, annoying cuck that he is.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
There's just a lot.
There are things about this movie that make me, every time I rewatch it, there are moments where I'm like, oh, this is where it could have gone a better direction and gotten better. But then it just takes a hard turn in another direction. And there are there are just things within the movie that I'm like, what is this? Like, what lore is this? Where does this come from? Why does this exist? Is there a reason for this? It doesn't progress the storyline. It doesn't progress. It's not building anything that helps a story. I don't want to spoil it before we spoil the movie, but like when we get there, I'll cut you off and we'll discuss, because there may be insight that I'm not privy to that you have as to why specific things were written into a script for whatever reason they are. But yeah, this is by far, it's just not, this will be one of those ones where dislike will be an agreement on. So, yeah. Yeesh.
But I mean, it even starts off with Swan Lake, like Dracula did.
Yep.
So that's the tune we're already getting here, because literally at this point we have Chaney Sr.'s Phantom of the Opera from 25. We've got Bela Lugosi's Dracula from 1931 and Boris Karloff's Frankenstein from 1931. This is the next thing that we have. So from no sounds and no words to no sounds, all words, and then just Frankenstein. And Frankenstein was awesome.
Yeah.
But like, The Mummy is literally just a carbon copy of Dracula, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But starts off with Swan Lake. Then we get the backstory of the Scroll of Thoth. It can resurrect the dead and bring them back. There's an expedition in Egypt in the season of 1921, the British Museum in Egypt. There's a younger explorer who's the like stereotypical, oh, but we're all in this for the gold and for the fame. And you got the old guys, one's dusting off a mummy that they found in the back, and then the other one's like, no, we're doing this for science. We're doing this for research. So it's kind of like the same younger mechanic that we're very used to now, where it's like the young one is very foolish and, you know, foolhardy and all about fame and gold and fortune. The old guy's like, it belongs in a museum.
All right, Indiana Jones.
Why did it have to be snakes? But we see the return of Edward Van Sloan. Of course, you know, he's been in Dracula. He's been in Frankenstein. He's now in The Mummy. So we see him in pretty much a very similar role. I mean, except for Dr. Volman, but basically being Abraham Van Helsing. So he's looking at the mummy in the back, and we see Boris Karloff's makeup, which, again, done by Jack Pierce. This took about 4 hours. So a lot less time than what Jack Pierce in a few years will be doing with Lon Chaney Jr.
And that was the one and only question I had for this episode was who did the makeup and what was the what was the process? Like, what did they use for the actual like mummy? And then what we end up seeing a little bit into the film with the pseudo old mouth wrinkles.
I did know what they used at one point. I cannot remember for the life of me, but I know it's like a lot of like folding up things and like patting it back down.
Okay.
Like, so we can't deny that Boris Karloff's mummy makeup that you see in the beginning is iconic. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Personally, because of the fact of we only see him in that mummy makeup for all of 30 seconds. And then the rest of the movie is Ardith Bay. I mean, I have Ardith Bay tattooed on my arm. I don't have the mummy. I have Ardith Bay.
Right.
Because there's an iconic like stare that happens where it's like, again, very similar to Dracula, where it focuses in on the eyes. But this one, it's like it's dark, he opens up, and the only thing that lights up are his eyes.
Mm-hmm. Everything
around it is shaded. It's so cool. So the mummy's there, and the kid wants to open up everything. Edward Van Sloan gives us some backstories. It's there were runes on the inside of the coffin, and the sacred spells to protect the soul on the way to the underworld were chipped off. So obviously somebody was buried like unceremoniously, just something went wrong in their life to the fact that they were buried without prayer. So basically having his soul doomed in not only this world, but the next. They learn a little bit about the mummy right there, and then they find the box, trying to like maybe find some secrets. They open it up, it's a golden box, and they're like, oh, let's open more. So they chip it open, and it says something along the lines of eternal damnation to those that open this box. So basically it's a terrible curse. And the kid is still like, well, go ahead, open it. Enough years in the Egyptian sun should be enough to ward off any of this evil mumbo jumbo. You don't.
Yeah.
So Van Sloan is basically like, put it back in the earth. Fuck off. Don't care.
Yeah.
So he takes the old guy outside. Before he leaves, he looks at the kid and goes, we'll open it later. Don't worry about it. So he goes outside. Edward Van Sloan saying, everything still lives in these hills, all the Egyptian gods, blah, 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 blah. Don't touch the thing. And then we get a very, very long silent scene of the kid like reading some stuff. He looks over at it and does the thing we all expected him to do. He opens the box and unveils the scroll of Thoth. He translates the hieroglyphs and he starts talking and basically saying the spell to awaken the mummy behind him to an infamous... There's like 2 infamous eye openings in this movie. And it's the only one we see of the mummy and then Ardith Bey later.
Yeah.
But Boris very, very slowly opens his eyes. Like, again, a mummy waking up after X amount of years of being asleep.
Yeah, and that eye opening is awesome too. Like it's almost robotic. Like there's no flutter of like a struggle or like I'm trying to open my eyes slowly. Like it is like he practiced opening his eyes. Like it's that good. It's crazy. His hands moving down on the other on the other hand.
The hands are very human, but the eyes are fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
The kid's still reading the hieroglyphs, and the mummy strolls over, and you see the hand come into frame, take the paper, slide it back. The kid looks over and lets out just a quick scream, and then backs up. It's like, oh, shocking. I don't know if I would stop screaming if all of a sudden the mummy was alive right next to me.
Right.
So the quick little,
his brain.
All right, moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then as we find out, he starts laughing. We see the mummy trailing off, and he goes, oh, he went for a little walk.
Yeah.
Basically, this guy laughed so much and was driven insane by what he saw. We find out in a few short minutes, that he laughed himself to death. So he went insane and died.
As you do. What?
Don't worry about it. So 1921 turns into 1932. So 11 years later, back in Cairo, or back in Egypt. Cairo's in this movie, but they are shut up. So now it's 1932, and we are back in the expedition. It's now the son of the old guy who's like, yeah, we'll open it later. Don't worry about it. It's David Manners.
David.
So they're giving a little bit of backstory. It's like, why are we back out here after 11 years, especially after your father's expedition? And, the guy who went crazy and was laughing, so he died laughing. And we see in the distance, they look out on the sunset, and we see a man arriving on camel. Turns out, with a knock on the door and a very slow, almost like Frankenstein way of opening the door. But it's mostly because we see Boris Karloff as Ardith Bey. And he's very slender. He's very gaunt, I believe is the word that I still can't remember if it's gaunt or jaunt. But he's very slender. Like, he's very thin. His hands, his arms, even in his face, he is very, very thin for this film.
One might actually say he's a slender man. I'll see myself out.
Is this gonna be your fucking input all episode? I swear to fucking...
I'm just here for the yucks.
Son of a bitch. So Boris shows up as Ardith Bey, and we all know, we know it's the mummy. We know who he is. We know it's Imhotep. He comes in and brings in a piece of, I believe it was a piece of pottery from the tomb of Ankh-Senamen. And he's like, yes, I will show you exactly where it is. It's not but 100 yards that way. And they're like, wait, what the fuck? What? We're just sitting on this? Let's go. So they take off, and they have a whole digging crew. They find the steps to the tomb, which they uncover a lot of steps before they really say anything.
Yeah. I mean,
are they going in there with a giant broom to just go, oh, a whole set of stairs has been revealed?
Probably. I mean, with this movie.
Yeah. So they start digging, and they have the whole song chant while the people are digging up this tomb. Eventually they're able to go down there, and they're like, the tomb of Ankh-Senamen. It hasn't been opened in however many years. It's like, cool. Should probably leave it that way.
Yeah. Let dead things lie.
Bad juju, man.
Yeah. Don't play with dead things.
So the Cairo Museum is where everything of the tomb of Ankh-Senamen was brought back to. Ardith Bey is shown then standing over the mummy and staring into its eyes. So we're like, I mean, we know what happens, but like eventually we'll learn why he's so infatuated with Ankh-Sanamen and why he had them dig up her anyway. So then a guy comes in and it's like, hey, it's closing time. You got to leave. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm Ardith Bay. And they're like, oh my God, you're the guy who like found this whole thing. The whole museum should be staying open all night in your honor. It's like, really? That's kind of cool though.
Foreshadowing.
But, yeah. We also get more foreshadowing because Frank Wemple, but his father, Dr. Wemple, don't remember his first name, Doctor. He's the one who finds him and goes, hey, time to leave. But then he goes, oh, you're Ardith Bay. And he reaches out for a handshake, but he looks at him and goes, nope. And then he's like, please, you must come to my office when we could talk. And he tries to put his hand on his like arm and he shudders away and goes, I just like being touched. Basically like, don't fucking touch me. It was an Eastern prejudice. I like this little detail of the mummy is very self-aware.
Yeah.
Like he knows that, hey, I'm still very brittle, hence why he's all fucking slender. But like he knows there could also be some stuff, as we'll see later, residue or mummy dust.
Mummy
dust. So before we see the museum, we meet Zita Johann as Helen, our female actress of the movie, our damsel, if you will, even though I wouldn't even really consider her a damsel in this movie. I don't know what she is, but I'm not a fan of Helen at all.
No. She's that generation's pick-me girl. Like that's really what it is. She's just like off being all mysterious, but still trying to be alluring to whomever is, brave enough to come talk to her. But it's like, oh my God.
It's also, again, pretty similar to Mina from Dracula.
Yeah.
But it's because like even under the spell, Dracula spell or the mummy spell, and it's all the whole like, don't tell them anything. Don't worry about it. Just be aloof. And it's like, cool. So they do that. And then it gets to the points where it's like, oh no, don't worry about it. I'm perfectly fine. Bring me your neck so I can bite it. What? No, what?
Nothing.
And it gets to that point in this movie, but it's like, I'm okay. Ardith Bay, don't worry about that guy. We talked it out. He's going to leave me alone. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not. Anyway, so we meet her and she's just looking out over the dunes of the sand.
Sea of sand.
Yeah, under the sand. So
you cannot breathe.
So at the museum, Dr. Wemple meets Ardith Bay. They go back to his office, and his son Frank comes in, played by David Manners. And he's like, yes, Ardith Bay, we met you there in the sands as you gave us the tomb of Ankh-Sanamen. And he's like, you disappeared really quickly after that. And he's like, don't worry about it. Yeah. So Ardith then leaves, and David's a very upset man about how the fact that the museum gets to keep all their findings. And it's like, well, we should keep it in Egypt. We shouldn't bring it anywhere else. But it's like, why are they getting all the credit? Don't worry about it. All right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't even be in this movie. I don't like David Manners.
I know. It's crazy.
I don't. He's the same character in these two movies, and he's a bitch in both of them.
The hatred for a man that's no longer alive kills me.
So we cut back, and Ardith Bay is right next to the tomb of Ankh-Sanamen, just like talking under his breath. We see that he's lit a candle, and he's reading from the Scroll of Thoth, and he's casting a spell out there of Ankh-Sanamen, Ankh-Sanamen, Ankh-Sanamen. And we cut back to Zita at the dance that she's been at, and she freezes and stares off into the distance and starts walking away. Yeah. And it's like, why did it get her? Does he know about her? We find out later she's like
a descendant.
Yeah, so many generations removed.
Yeah, the bloodline lives within her.
Which I'm glad they at least explained that, and it wasn't just like random woman that we showed in the beginning of the movie. Because, I mean, that happened sometimes back then.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm just some random woman who walked onto the street, and the monster's like, you
dead, bitch. Looking at you, Dracula.
I'm gonna eat your flesh.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, seriously. Hello, I'm Count Dracula. Damn!
Yeah, you did, man, girl.
So Helen goes outside. She hops in a taxi, and the taxi winds up at the museum as Frank and his father are leaving. And why they just sit there and stare at it instead of going, hey, guys, no, it's closed. Nobody's coming in at this time. But they just sit there and they stare. And Zita walks up to the door and starts, like, lightly falling into it, like, I'm banging on the door in my dream. It's like when you get into a fight in your dream, but you punch like a pillow. That's how she's hitting this door.
Yeah.
Basically going, I need to get in. I need to get in. And David, of course, being the knight in shining armor with his really strange looking runs up and he's like, the museum's closed. And she faints in his arms. This is where it gets fucking weird. So weird.
Yeah.
Like, I know David Manners is a bitch in Dracula and how he interacts with Mina. And I know later down the road of, Kemp in The Invisible Man, or even Lon Chaney's Larry Talbot in The Wolf Man. But David Manners in this movie is a whole other type of creep.
Yeah.
So she faints.
Doesn't stop.
No, it really, like, some of the shit he says is like, motherfucker, you met her yesterday.
Yeah, literally.
Is this movie, well, besides, the beginning and being 11 years apart, this takes place over like a day, maybe 2, right?
Yeah, I believe it's 2 days.
Some of these monster movies take place in a really short amount of time, but it's like, it feels like it takes forever.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, The Wolfman should take place over a couple months.
Really? Seriously, though. This one is like, oh my God. It is like 2 days, 1 night, somewhere around there, but it feels like an eternity. It's just, it's not the longest of the Universal monster movies, but it fucking feels like it.
It really does. I mean, I think this and Dracula are relatively the closest in length.
Yeah.
And they are the two that feel like an eternity. Me also personally, I don't remember off the top of my head right now how long The Phantom is. And I mean Chaney Sr., but that one feels like it's fucking long.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but that one's worth the watch.
The silent movie.
Yeah, but that
True,
one's
but
worth
it's also
the
the
watch.
silent aspect.
And that's okay.
We just said the same thing twice.
Yeah, but it's okay because it's good versus, this, I don't know, man. The Mummy's such a hard watch. At least
we talked about this when I was leaving after we got back from Silver Scream Con.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not bad. I love Claude Rains, but yes, the Chaney Sr. is better.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah. Yep. Claude Rains is the shit. Great. The movie, not so much. We got to get the originals.
Yep.
Man, it was happening back then. People remaking shit, and it wasn't as good as the original. This is a fucking story as long as time. It's just
tale as old as time.
Yeah, but the creep. Let's just jump back into this because we'll just bitch and get completely off topic and never tell anyone how this movie transpires into fucking disaster.
Yeah. So basically, Zita or Helen is brought back to the Wemple's house. So she's in there. They're looking after her, taking care of her. We go back to the museum, and Ardif Bey is inside praying again at the altar, this time by candlelight, like in the dark. There's a guard going around, and he finds Ardif Bey. Ardif puts out the candle and starts walking away. It's so funny. It's just the guard turns on the light, chases him out. The mummy turns off the light again, and the guard is like, bitch, get over here. And then
you can't see me.
The guard is killed under darkness, and we know what happened. The mummy killed him. Back at the Wemples, Helen wakes up, and Dr. Miller, Edward Van Sloan's character, is there to explain, how did you get here? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know. I was just, I was at the dance. All of a sudden I was here, and I don't remember going to the museum last night. And then Miller and Wemple, the senior Wemple, they go to talk, and David Manners, Frank, just starts hitting on Helen. Like,
hard.
Yeah. Like, he's like, all right, David or Frank, whoever the fuck you are, stay with her. make sure she's okay. And he's like, cool. Hey, baby.
Yeah.
Like, one of the first things he said is, well, Egypt wasn't that great. It would have been a lot better if I saw you there. It's like,
Yeah.
motherfucker.
I just passed
She's
out.
a woman who was in distress. You were told to make sure she's okay. So he talks about finding the princess, and he goes into like, but when we found her clothes and her jewels and her toilet things, it's like, okay.
Egyptian tampons.
Yeah. And she's like, why do you go through all that shit? You don't like, she's very like, don't go raiding people's tombs, man. And he's just like, yes, but toilet things. She goes, do you have to open graves to find girls to fall in love with? Fuck. It's like, fuck you, man.
Yeah.
Going looking for dead girls to find girls to talk to you, you sack of shit.
The original necrophiliac.
So it's really funny, just her going at David like that. One of the things that we heard was when she was still asleep, she was murmuring like Imhotep.
Mm-hmm.
Imhotep. That's why Miller and Wemple went away, because Wemple's like, she was saying something that I haven't heard and I haven't said it to anybody in 11 years. Imhotep. And Van Sloan's like, Imhotep. So he's like, oh, fuck. Or even better for the meme, oh, shit, here we go again. Because it's going to be the same fucking thing of Van Helsing taking on Dracula when he goes, Nosferatu. They get a call, and Wemple finds out that there's a dead guard at the museum, and it was died of shock. So
Twice.
They go to the museum and find the guard with the scroll of Thoth in his hand, and it said that he died of shock. Meanwhile, David is back being a creep with a pillow and caressing her arm, and he said, well, when I held you in my arms, and it's like, dude, fuck off. Helen is literally just like, please stop. It's been a day. I've passed out. I don't know how I got here. He goes, you can tell me to go to the devil, but you can't laugh at me.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
Yeah.
And she already laughed at him and basically said, fuck off.
Yeah.
So she could do both, fucker. And then he just kisses her.
Yeah.
What?
Different times, man. It was strange, but it's still fucking creepy. I even feel like his character was written to be hated, even then.
Like, I don't know how anybody looked at him and was like, that's the hero of the movie.
Right.
That's who I want to be. Because, I mean, let's be real. We're not watching Universal monster movies for the characters in them. We're looking for the monsters.
Right.
That's all we want. I don't know if there's a single background character that I was like, yeah, good for you. So Wemple and Miller come back and they're like, what the fuck? Why is he fucking kissing her right now? Jesus fucking Christ. So they walk in, and at that moment I would have been like, Frank, get out of the room.
Get away from her, Uncle Touchy.
Seriously. And so he takes Frank and the older Wemple into the office again. And this is where Frank's like, I'll see you later. Toodaloo. It's like, fuck you. Yeah, he's pretty much like, I'll be back in a little bit. It's like, nobody cares. Nobody wants you back here.
Exactly. Please don't.
So, yeah, Van Sloan starts to explain the curse, the mummy of Imhotep, because like he hadn't said the name to anybody in 11 years. And the only people that know are Miller and Wemple, the older Wemple, because his son's a piece of shit. But Van Sloan already expects or, suspects Ardith Bay, because he's like, who was at the museum earlier? How'd you find this? Oh, it was Ardith Bay. Weird. Okay. So it's pretty much, again, this Count Dracula, you say. So he already is onto this shit. So,
yeah.
And again, it's pretty much like fucking Dracula, because there's a moment very, very soon. It feels really early in the movie for this to be like, yes, I am the mummy, motherfucker. It's like Ardith arrives and hypnotizes the Nubian, as they call him, basically the servant at the door, and creepily stares at Helen from afar in the room. So he's just like, oh my God, you're Unxanamen. So this is where we get like an actual little bit of music in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just like the silence of Dracula and the staring. It's like there's a little bit of music with this stare. And she wakes back up and he goes, 1,000 pardons. It sounds very sincere, which is like, that's nice. He finds out that she's Egyptian, so he's like connecting the dots and going, oh my God, descendant in the bloodline.
Yep.
this is my way to do it. And we cut back to the office where I almost called him Van Miller. Van Sloan's character, Miller, is like, burn the scroll or hide it and then bury it or burn it.
Burn it.
Yep. And then you hear Franco, who's out there with her right now? He goes over the door and it's Ardith Bay. And we cut back. There's a little bit of that stare, that powerful, unnerving stare that we normally see when he just opens his eyes, his eyelids and everything gets black around it, but it's just the bright white eyes.
It's awesome.
It's so good. He finds out that she made it to the museum and she was trying to get in. And he goes, why were you there? And he goes, well, I don't know. Something just drew me there. So they all come out and start talking to Ardith Bay. And it's like, Helen, why don't you go home? And then she goes, no, I don't want to. I feel fine.
Why don't you go?
I'm going to stay here with... Yeah, I'm staying here with Ardith Bay. And meanwhile, Ardith Bay is like a foot above her, just staring into her eyes. And it's like, man, blink twice if you're in distress. Jesus Christ.
She is mine.
So she leaves. And again, damn near carbon copy of Dracula, where basically they're calling him out on it. It's like, yeah, well, I could crush your bones, you brittle mummy. And it's like, oh, shit. All right. We're just going for it. You have no other suspects and we're just going for it. Like Wemple is already very in distress because he found out, the guard died earlier, but now he's like, oh my God, it is fucking Imhotep. This is the mummy, the curse that kid opened up many years ago.
Yeah.
He's like, Professor Wemple, you look unnerved. He's like, yeah, a guard died tonight. And he goes, He's like, weren't you at the museum earlier? And he goes, no.
No.
It's pretty much just like he's trying to keep the jig up, but Van Sloan goes for the throat and says, and I could crush your brittle bones to dust. And he's like, go ahead. Do it. See what happens.
Do it. I dare you.
It's pretty much like he goes, but your powers are so strong that I'm unable to do anything. So it's like, cool. So you don't want to try anything because like we can't see anything happening.
Right.
There's not like he's sitting there going back. It's just he shows up and he goes, your powers are so strong, I can't do a thing about it. It's like, how? What?
Yeah, right. And what powers exactly? All we've seen you do is hypnotize the same woman.
Yeah. Again, it's very similar to Dracula. I feel like Dracula did it better.
Yeah.
Because Dracula, there's some sort of lore behind Dracula that you can already feel versus a mummy, which you can make up anything.
Right. Yeah, and yeah,
Dracula is Dracula. The mummy could be anything.
Yeah, the mummy is Dracula. That's all they did. Yeah. Carbon copy, just tall and gross looking.
Yeah. So Ardith Bay is basically like, deuces, bitches, you can't do shit about it. And it's like, see you later, and walks out.
Okay, bye.
Yeah. And then Wemple goes back to try and burn the scroll later, but we see Ardith Bay at a seeing pool. Or whatever it might be.
This is the part that I brought up at the beginning of the episode. A fucking what? A seeing pool? So Homeboy's got he can utter the same word multiple times into the air, hypnotizes some random who happens to share blood from fucking 1,000 years prior. Great. Okay, I can get behind that. I can understand that. Then out of nowhere, he's just like, check out this infinity pool. I can see everything. Like,
yep.
What do you have a fucking government issued satellite in the sky and just for some reason you have a water screen? Like, it makes zero sense. Comes out of fucking nowhere.
The mummy could also pretty much murk everybody in the world that he wanted to. Like, if the moment he went, all right, cool, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
it takes a little bit out of him. Like, after Wemple tries to burn the scroll, and he basically does the whole and crushes his heart, gives him a heart attack, whatever.
Right.
And it's like, then he kind of falls down like, oh, Jesus. Oh, it took a lot out of me. It's like, cool, recover, go back, murk the next person.
Yeah.
And the next person.
And I feel, me trying to find logic in things, I have a feeling
it's a movie.
The reason he gets so winded is because he hasn't fully, like, quote unquote, recovered and, like, become human again.
He hasn't done this in thousands of years.
Right. So if he finally becomes human, like fully, he probably could just murk everybody. And it's the fact that doing that to one person when he knows there's at least 3 other people he's got to take care of, and only doing one.
I mean, maybe the mummy is some OP god that we don't know yet. Maybe the mummy character appreciation is
right.
I
don't know, maybe
not just there yet.
I was gonna say maybe that's answered in Tom Cruise's Mummy that I'll never watch, but I guess I'll never find out.
Ardith Bay kind of slumps over after that. It's just like, oh, sweet Jesus. The Nubian, as it's put, goes back in, burns some newspaper, and takes the scroll of Thoth and leaves. And at this point, we cut ahead. Van Sloan is like, well, your father did it. He burned the scroll of Thoth. Everything's okay.
Not my tax
Don't
forms.
worry about it. Yeah. My W-2s.
No.
At this point, it's so weird. It's because he goes, all right, we got to go see Helen. We got to check in on her. You got to give her this, like, she's under his spell. You got to give her this, like, amulet, basically like the crucifix from Dracula.
Yeah.
It's to ward off any spells, it'll protect her. And he goes, I've seen your attraction to my patient, and I've seen hers to you. And he goes, really? Hello. And David just gets, again, creepy as fuck, because it's like, her attraction to me.
Huh. I didn't notice that, and neither did any of the viewers. All we ever saw was that you were creeping her the fuck out, dude.
Suddenly, I have a restraining order.
Yes.
This is how we're telling you, Frank. I'm sorry. No, I'm not.
I burned it in the fire.
So David calls Helen and tells her to stay at the hotel, and she's like, why would I go anywhere? You know what? Why can't I go anywhere? I'm a woman. I can do whatever I want. So they start driving to see her. Before that, Van Sloan grabbed some of the ashes and like put it in an envelope, which I'm glad he did. Otherwise, the plot wouldn't have moved forward.
Right.
But also at the same point, it's like, why did he have to grab the ashes? Unless he didn't trust it. Maybe he didn't.
No.
Maybe that's just, again, the Van Helsing character in him. But on their way there, he's like, he just burned some newspaper. Your father is dead for no reason. So, sorry. He did not burn the scroll of Thoth, and I think the Nubian took it and ran away. And he's like, but what? He's an old slave. He probably just got scared. And it's like, we find out that Helen got hypnotized.
Again.
Because, as we see the iconic stare. And she's hypnotized to start walking to somewhere, some place in town, which, does the mummy pay rent? Does he, pay property taxes at this place? I don't know.
Yeah.
But she's walking there with her dog, and it's, in the middle of a bustling, almost downtown high street area.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, with a lot of these movies in that time, there was probably the house was given for him working for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but
I don't think that was in that Universal Backlot Village. It doesn't look like any of the other villages. Because Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, the Wolf Man, it's all the same village. It's like this Eastern European village, and this is in Egypt.
Right. I mean, it did look slightly like the streets in Dracula, where Dracula randomly attacks that random
the London street. Yeah,
it has that same kind of look. So who knows how big that lot is? Because that lot's been used in other things outside of the Universal Monster universe. So,
yeah.
I mean,
I still like how I noticed that Trafalgar Square was in Dracula after I went to England. It was like, oh, fuck, I've been there.
I know where that's at. I done been there.
That's where the flower girl got killed. That's where Dracula walked away looking like a boss.
You say that out loud, and all the Brits are just like, fucking Americans.
Helen goes into the side shop area that Ardith Bay has, rented out, and it's the Nubian at the door. The dog immediately starts barking. They go in, and there's a cat, a white cat with Ardith Bay, and the cat hisses at the dog. Your dog's got to go.
Right.
He can't be in here.
Yeah.
Which it's like, but you have a cat. I get, respecting the fact it's your place, whatever, but why?
Mm-hmm.
So then the dog gets taken away, and he's explaining the whole fact of I've seen you before in Ankh-Sanamen. It's you're Egyptian. There's a descendant thing. And he starts showing her in his vision pool back in time to, I loved Ankh-Sanamen. She was sick. She died. And then I went against the gods, stole the scroll of Thoth, and that's when we see a guard or a god statue point at him don't do it, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Don't you do it. but he runs off and tries to resurrect the dead, and his father finds out, who's the pharaoh, and sentences him to death, unceremonious, unnamed death. It gets pretty brutal too.
Yeah, they wrap him. They
bury him alive.
Yeah, they put him in his like royal coffin, his sarcophagus. But they wrap him while he's still alive, then close it, then dejewel it, which is like huge. That is like historic. It's happened. It happened at, there were certain sarcophaguses that were found that are in museums that have chipping marks on it because they were dejeweled due to some crime or insult that they did to the gods. And so that is the one moment in the movie where I'm like, yo, this is fucking metal as shit.
Yeah.
This is a saving grace within the film. And honestly, the only saving grace within the film. That flashback is awesome.
Yeah. And like that Van Sloan was talking about in the very beginning of like all the sacred rituals and like, spells and prayers and incantations to protect the soul crossing into the underworld. All of those were chipped off. It's like this guy was fucked for the rest of eternity.
Oh, yeah.
In his eternal suffering and just death.
There's
no rest.
I have to give props to that scene too, because it's framed, which I just think is so cool, because I'm watching it for the however many times I've seen this movie. I've seen it a lot, but I'm going, how did they do that? Like, it's not like now where you can just digitally slap a frame on something or change the ratio of what, looking at the most recent film that's done something like this, Long Legs, we get the flashback sequences that are shot in like Super 8 style. And then everything that's currently happening in the movies, like, normal film ratio. There's a full ass frame with, a flashback playing in it. And it's kind of fucking badass, to be completely honest, to know like, wow, somebody figured out how to make this a reality on film back then. So
it's really cool.
Yeah.
So we see that again, like buried unceremoniously, no jewels, no prayers, buried alive. He was wrapped alive, and watching Boris Karloff's eyes go from, I'm just tired and they're wrapping me alive. You're going over my mouth. What are you doing? What the fuck? Oh, God. His eyes just get wider, and it's a brief moment of possibly going, is Boris Karloff like, what the fuck is happening? What's going on? I hate this all of a sudden. Claustrophobic. I mean, that man's been through some makeup, but goddamn.
Yeah.
I even thinking about it makes me feel claustrophobic sometimes.
Yeah, that's
just being buried alive. Ugh.
What cracks me up is, speaking of, makeup and being claustrophobic, you had asked me while we were at Silver Scream Con, like, oh, could you cosplay like that? Pointing at Art the Clown. There was an Art the Clown walking around in like prosthetic makeup the whole time. I was like, fuck no, absolutely not. But I didn't expand on the fact that I would feel claustrophobic. Years and years and years ago, when I was a larger fella, I did Captain Spaulding from The Devil's Rejects as Halloween for Halloween. And I like Bic shaved my head. My head was smooth. I did the full like grease paint, everything on my face. And 3 hours into a Halloween party, I was like, I have to get this shit off of me, because it just doesn't feel natural. Like my face wasn't breathing. I can't imagine having prosthetics on you, and then you're walking around a humid ass, tightly packed freaking con the entire time. And then you look back and you go back in time to the era that the Universal monster movies were being made, and prosthetics were not breathable in any way, shape, or form at all.
Yeah.
And then having to fucking do that time and time again to film one movie is insanity. Oh, yeah. No, thank you. Absolutely not.
The one I respect the most, besides Lon Chaney Sr., like Lon Chaney Sr. without any shadow of a doubt, because he did his own makeup and prepped all that shit, and none of it was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially thinking back to The Hunchback. That was like so much mass tacked onto him, and he's already a pretty, slender-ish dude.
Yeah.
He was not like his kid who was fucking, hello,
yeah,
I'm Lon Chaney Jr. And it's like, fuck. But like, it's got to be Rico Browning, not Ben Chapman, not anybody else. It's the fact that he's that's some tight mask.
Yeah.
Like the suit is very, very, there's not enough room to breathe properly. Like when you see some close up shots of the creature from the Black Lagoon, you could see the mouth inside.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he's swimming underwater for long periods of time with air hoses and shit, or just holding his breath, I would be panicking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've jumped in the water with a morph suit on and I was waterboarding myself. I cannot imagine this shit.
No.
So
nope.
Makeup tangent over. But hey, that's why you listen. The tangents.
Yeah.
So the rest of the wrapping goes, again, chiseling off everything, and they start bringing him out to the sands of Egypt, and basically they slide him down a hill and say, cool, bury it. They don't bury it at all. It's super unceremonious. And then once they bury it, all the slaves that were digging and burying it, they were killed. Mm-hmm. And then the soldiers who killed them were killed. But what about the soldiers after that? And the soldiers after that?
So
who kills who?
Tangent number 2 on this. I have the same thought every single time I watch it. I'm like, so
when does it stop?
Did they take the guards that killed the slaves and bring them elsewhere? Like, oh, yeah, good job. Let's go back to the barracks. And then they went back to the barracks, and the other guards were like, these dudes, did they lie to these other dudes? And we're like, oh, they're bad. You got to kill them. Because
no, they were speared as well, right on the fucking burying.
Yeah, but that's an endless circle. That's the snake eating its own tail at that point, because these other guards witnessed it as well. So who the fuck killed them? That's where my brain goes.
Maybe it's like a super elite royal guard. I don't know.
I don't know. It blows my mind.
They gave themselves a circle, and they're like, move on, just move on, just move on. Don't question it. They'll question it fucking 90 years later. Yeah. And yeah. So Imhotep's flashback ends. Helen kind of wakes up, and he's like, you are Ankhsenamen. And then we hear the sound of the dog being killed in the back, unfortunately. Yeah. Which it's like, I think it could have been implied. I don't think we entirely needed that, but I mean, it's fucked.
Yeah.
So he's like, you're not going to say shit about this to anybody. Go back to your hotel. Don't do anything. No. And then she shows back up at the hotel. David and Van Sloan are there, and he's like, where were you? And she's like, it's no affair of yours. And he goes, yes, it is. Dude, no, it's not.
No, you fucking green.
She doesn't owe you any explanation whatsoever. And yet he's very like, well, we told you to stay. You gotta, it's like, dude, she doesn't owe you shit.
No, not at all.
And eventually it goes, well, where's your dog? And she goes, I took him for a walk. Where's the dog? She goes, he killed him. Imhotep killed him. And it's like, or no, it was the Nubian killed him, who's like under the spell of Imhotep. So basically just told them flat out, even though Imhotep was like, bitch, you promised. At this point, it's like, cool, we need to protect her. But at the same point, hey, when he calls to you again, go to him, because we want to follow and take him out. This is our only chance to do it. And she's sitting there like, you're going to use me as bait. Sick. Cool. Fan-fucking-tastic.
Fantastic.
What happens at this very moment in time, because, same thing as Dracula, gives her the crucifix, doesn't keep it for himself, and then the crucifix is taken. But the whole soul sigil trinket, whatever the fuck, he's like, keep this, David. It's going to protect you. He puts it on her door to protect her. And what happens? The mummy tries to pop his heart now.
Yeah.
And he crawls his way over to her room, grabs the chain at the last second, and opens the door with it because it's on the door handle. And she just strolls out underneath the spell, free as a bird. And he's fucking, we think he's dead.
Right.
Could have happened.
Should have happened.
Ardith tries to kill him, and he grabs the chain, charm, whatever, and he faints. And Helen leaves, and we get the super cool stare again. We see the museum. It's been broken into. At this point, Helen is full Ankhsenamen mode, and Boris takes the mummy that was the old body of Ankhsenamen. Like, there was clearly nothing that he broke into, but it was the sound of breaking glass, because his hand just goes up and comes down into an open case.
Yeah.
Because nothing falls in, but it's like, it was a nice little attention to detail. And he takes the massive mummy out, which we don't see, and he brings it over to a chimney or like this little tuckaway, because he sets the mummy on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. It's a large fireplace or just a nice corner where the fire won't spread. I don't know.
Which it has to have some opening above it, because otherwise all that smoke is just going to fill the room.
Right. Which would have been a nice little thing to add, but whatever.
Yeah. So she's kind of like, wait a minute, what the fuck? And he's at this point basically going to be like, I'm going to take your soul.
Yep.
And it's going to, resurrect that body in you. And this is where Zeta's like, wait, what? Fuck no, dude, I don't want that. And she kind of goes, wait, I've had my time. She's still as Ankhsenamen at this point. She's like, I had my time. This is a new body. I want to live a new life. I don't want that shit again. And he grabs her and she pulls away. And this is where we see the mummy dust on her arm.
Yep.
From like why he doesn't like to be touched, because shit like that'll happen. And she's freaking out and starts praying for help. And the Nubian shows back up and tries to go after her. Frank wakes up and Van Sloan brings him to the museum, and they're on their way there. And then the mummy turns and looks at the Nubian and he's like showing him a ring. And he's like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Not now.
Yeah.
Because he was in the beginning, he was like stirring some sort of cauldron with some like embalming fluid in it, I believe. And then he takes a dagger before he's sent away. That is the dullest looking dagger I've ever seen. It looks like a giant dull arrowhead. It looks like if you poke somebody with it, it's going to be like, ow,
ow,
ow.
It just leaves a nice
bitch.
bruise. Doesn't puncture skin at all.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, God, I have a sore shoulder now, you dick. But then he basically shows him the ring. The Nubian backs out of the room. He picks up the dagger. He's like, this is happening.
Yeah.
All right. And he picks up the dagger. He starts going after her. Frank and Van Sloan show up. I'm very consistent with who I name these people.
Yeah.
And he goes after them, starts showing them a ring. And they kind of just like, oh, God, it's bright in here, kind of turn around. And it's like, don't look at the ring because it's going to do something. And then as she's praying to Isis, the god that was there at the beginning that doomed Imhotep for being like, I'm going to go against you. Motherfucker, don't you do it. And then she's praying to him, or she's praying to the god Isis, and then it raises its arm and points the Ankhs. What is it? Is it the Ankh? The Ankh, I think. Whatever that prince symbol looking thing is.
Yeah.
Points it at Imhotep, and he's just like, oh shit. And then we see a big flash. We cut back. The scroll of Thoth has been lit on fire. And we cut back to Ardith Bey, who slowly doing a lap dissolve, we see turn into a mummy, but not the same makeup. It's like a prop skull with a bunch of things wrapped around it.
Yeah.
And then a skull. And then we hear the pound of falling dirt. And into a little puddle of man falls Imhotep, Ardith Bey, little puddle of bones and dust. And Helen, she goes over and probably says, hey, fuck you, man. I don't have anything to do with you anymore, and runs away. But
yeah,
that is 1932's The Mummy.
Sorry, everybody. We had to do it, though. Yeah. I'm curious to hear, listeners, suckers out there, your input. If you love this movie, you have reason why. We'd love to hear it. And I'm going to be kind of rude about this, I think. It being a classic or having a good memory tied to it because you watched it with X and Y family member or whatever does not count. Like, we want to know, where's the saving grace in this? Like, the brutality of the flashback is probably my only saving grace, but I would take that as an entire movie over what we ended up getting, to be completely honest.
Yeah. It's I don't think that I've ever liked the original Mummy, which it feels like a cardinal sin, but at the same point, I love The Mummy's Tomb with Lon Chaney Jr. as Kharis.
That's an awesome movie. That's why.
That's that movie, which, I mean, I guess we'll have to talk about eventually now, but like The Mummy's Tomb, when I was younger, I was home alone and my brother had went down the street to his friend's house and a massive summer storm came in. So I'm in my house, a 200-something-year-old house, which was haunted. We'll go into that in detail in the future.
Yeah, buddy.
And I'm watching The Mummy's Tomb, and it's the creepy scene of him like walking past the old couple's door, like window, and seeing the shadow, and just him slinking around, being a fucking creep. And I hear a creak upstairs, and I went, nope. So I went outside and stood in a pouring thunder and lightning storm for like 20 minutes, looking up and down the street, going, "Where's my brother? Please come back." And I went back in, turned off the movie, and everything was fine.
Yeah.
I love The Mummy's Tomb.
Your child brain making things worse than they actually are.
Oh, 100%. There was a mummy in my fucking upstairs for all I knew.
Man.
But yeah, so long story short, I think it's pretty obvious. Similar to Frankenstein in the past, our bloody legends are going to two people. It's going to be Boris Karloff for bringing the Mummy and Imhotep and Ardith Bey, whatever you want to call him, to life. His performance, I love Ardith Bey in the movie. Yeah, again, that's why I have him as a tattoo instead of the Mummy look, because Ardith Bey is powerful. Yes, it is Egyptian Dracula, but I think there is still things of Bela Lugosi's Dracula and Boris Karloff's Ardith Bey. They are two separate characters on the same mission. The movie, however, plays out the exact same. Taking the characters out of the movie because they're fantastic. And also, of course, Jack Pierce, because yet again, bringing another iconic look to life. Like the Mummy, every other Mummy after this was based on this Mummy. I know you can only do so much with a Mummy, but at the same point, like you look at some of the other mummies that are coming out nowadays, looking at you, Tom Cruise, 2017, you bitch.
Man.
I think that Boris and Jack are very deserving of this, and I still love the look of the Mummy. Ardith Bey's makeup and his whole getup is my favorite.
Yeah, the looks and everything in the film are great. It's just the story and the approach is not original. It's not great. It's not entertaining. It's a bit of a snooze fest.
Yeah. So with that being said, and I'm very interested, because if I remember correctly, you said Dracula was a 2?
Yeah, I believe so. It was 2 or 3.
Yeah. So out of how many Dracula carbon copies would you give The Mummy from 1932?
You ready?
Yep.
1. It gets 1.
Yeah, I saw that coming.
Yeah, it's a 1. I do go back and rewatch it. And it's literally simply because it's a classic. I don't ever really enjoy it. I don't always pay full attention. It's one of those, I'm going to put this on and play a game on my phone.
Yeah.
And that's about it. But yeah, it is a 1. I don't really find much within it that makes it good. Again, the flashback sequence, that's one scene in the movie, and that's what's getting my 1. So what about you, Jason Michael? Where on the scale of 1 to 10, where do you land with The Mummy?
Honestly, it's not going to be as low as that. I still love all of these in their own way. Just again, when we get to the end of it after the next and the final Universal movie of The Phantom of the Opera, we're gonna rank all of them out of 8. So The Mummy, unfortunately, spoiler alert, is my least favorite of the Universal monsters.
Not much of a spoiler.
And, yeah. Again, not because it's not a classic or The Mummy isn't iconic or Boris Karloff doesn't do a tremendous presentation of The Mummy and Ardith Bey. No, even the 30 seconds that The Mummy is there, again, still iconic. That's becoming not my new word now, apparently. But it's boring.
Yeah.
And it's like Dracula kind of has that same feeling. Like when I watch Dracula, I watch it every Valentine's Day because that's when it came out. But it kind of sometimes feels like a chore because it takes a while to get into certain things, and it's like I'm only watching it for certain things that I know and I love that part. With The Mummy, there's not very many of those parts. And after this very long explanation, I still feel like I'd have to give it at least a 5.
That makes sense. It's
definitely my lowest rating because everything else has been a 10 and a 9, and I think I gave Dracula an 8.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a shame, but it is.
It's a tough one just because of where it lies, and even though it is copying a movie of its same era, it did influence horror for the future. So it's tough. It's tough to hate it as hard as I do. Well, with that being said, we come to the close of the second episode of our October spooktacular, whatever it is. But before we close this out, Jason Michael, is there anybody that you would like to thank this week?
Yes, I would like to thank R.L. Stein for making Goosebumps, and that little is just the Goosebumps theme, and it occasionally pops into my brain. So, also whoever made the music for the show, because listen,
that's my ringtone.
It's great. That's a fucking banger of a theme song, dude. Let's be real.
It's a ringtone on my
Even
phone.
the dog.
Yeah,
when the dog pops in, it's fucking awesome.
It's awesome.
Anyway, I would definitely like to thank Boris Karloff again for like putting a massive iconic role to the screen for people to know and to recognize. Again, I have Ardith Bay on my arm, and it's so cool to look at two Boris Karloffs right next to each other, and then the Chaney family right above it. It's awesome. Rob, I would like to thank you because, again, the amount of work that you're putting in behind the scenes, not only for wrapping up of season 2, but the work you're already putting into season 3, the movies you put up for everyone to watch during this month, and you're doing way more than people really truly know about. So you deserve the credit for all of that. Yeah, shut up and take the praise, get it? But yeah, that is who I would like to thank for this week. Rob, what about you?
I definitely got to thank you, per usual, always doing all the editing stuff and coming in hot into the spooky season 2. The amount of recording that we're doing in such a short period of time, the editing is just stacked, and you're back streaming on top of all of that.
And it's all out of whack and time.
Yeah. The free entertainment that you give, not just me, but everybody else on Twitch is just awesome. Like, I always have a ball anytime I'm free and I see that you're on. I'm like, ooh, I jump on and
hey, thanks,
just
man.
listen to you scream at the game for a solid 2 hours. So yeah, I got to thank you. I would also love to thank my wonderful partner, fiance, for all of the support and the knowing and giving the space for me to do my thing within the family unit that we have created here. So yeah. And I just want to thank, in general, the amazing brains behind and art and creativity behind everybody that worked on all of the original Universal Monster movies. Because even though there may be some that I consider a stinker, the visuals that were created back in the time that visuals were not really something that were thought after or sought out, they knock it out of the park. So, yeah. And then last, but definitely not least, in any way, shape, or form, we have got to send a huge thank you out to Seamus Belial for being the amazing artist that he is, speaking of artists, and for hosting our official spoiler sleepover merchandise at Gore Clown. And again, if you go to goreclown.com and you get anything, use code sleepover at checkout and save 15% on your entire purchase.
15!
Yeah. So those are our thank yous. We thank you as well, all of you suckers out there, for tuning in and coming back for spooky season. I hope you are enjoying your watch-alongs so far. I hope our list that we made for you is confusing as hell and has covered all of the bases so far. We tried our damnedest to make sure. So
with that being said, we, of course, have to get you ready. Rob, what is next week's episode going to be?
Ooh, buddy. Next week, we're going right back to the Child's Play universe to enjoy a little bit of what shot out of Tiffany at the end of Bride. And we're going to be watching Seed of Chucky. This one is so much fucking fun. This is...
What a descriptor.
Dude, you're going to lose your goddamn mind during this movie. It is unhinged. It is so good. It is a full-blown, blood-splattered comedy. It is so good. And it has a lot of heart. A lot of heart. So...
It's a family movie.
It's
Literally.
It's a movie about a family. Do not show your kids. But yes, so we'll be back next week with Seed of Chucky. And until next week, sleep tight, suckers.
Ardith Bay.
Yeah, I had nothing, man. I was going to make the...
I was like, mummy noise!
I was going to go...
Aww.
It has been established persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder.
Spoiler Sleepover is sponsored by Gore Clown Shop.
Do you love all things horror? Books? Movies? Podcasts? Of course you do. Well, come on down to goreclown.com.
Original artwork by an indie horror fan for indie horror fans.
Use code SLEEPOVER at checkout to save 15% on your whole purchase.
Oh, and did we mention? Gore Clown is the only place to get official Spoiler Sleepover merch.
So don't forget to use Sleepover to save 15%.
Stay indie, suckers.